this division. So the starting point is, of course, this very famous quote from Karl Marx. Philosophers have interpreted the word in various ways, but the point is to change it. So and I think that is in this kind of conference, in this kind of environment, we are all on the same wave, that we want to change what is happening out there that we don't like. So it's nice to describe and to interpret and so on, but how can we move from there and to make some change happen? So one of the key concepts is solidarity. Solidarity is something that can mobilize energies and it can build connections between individuals and between movements in order to make this change happen. So this is very true, especially for when we look at researchers and social movements. So this approach, how can research can be at the service of social movements? So as the Trapeze Collective a few years ago highlighted, so solidarity means being on the side of the marginalized. The idea was to have a sound system, but we didn't take it. And work with agendas and goals chosen by those affected, not outside agencies. But if we go deeper in this kind of definition of solidarity, beyond being a researcher, so everyone can be in solidarity. So if you have come to help me, I don't need your help. But if you have come because your liberation is tied to mine, then let us work together. So I think this is very true, and is helping a bit moving from this idea of researchers. So what we want to do is to build a knowledge that is relevant for social movements. So Conti said the goal of research is not interpretation of the word, but the organization of transformation that is building from the quote that we saw before. So knowledge should be relevant, useful, and readable for all the actors working towards social change. And of course, this knowledge should be decolonized in order to delink practices and processes from coloniality. That is an embedded process in our state of mind, even inside the core. Okay, we can have even a colonial approach within the center, not only outside to the periphery or the semi-periphery, but even within social movements in the core. So, commonalities we have between us, this is the only way we have to make a global revolution. So, we can learn, we can look at organize, we should develop strategies that are working in our communities. And then we can have a global revolution. So this knowledge should be based on the communities, in the groups where we work with, where we are based, where we live. And then, of course, thanks to an interconnection of different networks, then we can build up and scale up. So what? So what does it mean in practice? My proposal is this process that is building a culture of resistance, resistances as a plural, as we live in a plural world, as a situated knowledge and practice for social change. So there is this academic term, let's say, so building a culture of resistance that I will unpack, but it's just a name that can be, you can substitute that as an example as the Zapatista struggle or democratic confederalism or whatever can work for your community. Okay, it's just a label that can be changed. And then is a situated knowledge, but it's not just a theory, it's also practice at the same time. So this is the only very long slide with a lot of text, I'm sorry, but it's only one, okay? This is an attempt that I made this morning at 3 a.m. so bear with me if it's not very precise. I'm working about this concept of building a culture of resistance for a few years, but this is the first time that I define it by myself in a concise way and not in a chapter. So let's read it together. Let's see if it works. Being a culture of resistance is a learning process that draws on the memory of the past and the imagination of possible futures in harmony with nature. It develops from all such alternative projects and movements that arise in opposition to capitalism, contributing to the creation of shared ideas, practices, beliefs, values, and norms, which together form reconstructive and liberatory alternatives. Okay, let's unpack all these key concepts. So the idea is to have the analysis of what is happening in the past. So social movements, social actors should learn of what happened in the past. What we won, for example, but also what we lost, and also what is happening out there, what the bad people, without putting too many labels, are doing, so we don't forget what is happening, in order to maintain the knowledge for future generation. And then we need imagination. The imagination is, okay, that happened in the past, what shall we do? That happened in Brazil, that happened in US. What can I do in my region, in my community, in Udine or in Trieste or in Sicily, and so on. So the idea is to create, okay, these possible futures, again, as a plural, in harmony with nature. And I wanted to highlight that because, again, there are interlinks with social ecology, as we will see in the last slide. That is one of the crises that we are living today, is the disconnection between humans, nature, and the crisis within a human society. So this cultural resistance can develop from all social alternative projects. So what has been called the power to create, but at the same time also all the movements. So all the opposition, all the struggle in the streets, demonstrations, direct actions, militant direct actions, and so on. So that all these forms, they contribute to create all the list, ideas, practices, beliefs, values, and norms that then can be at the base for future and future alternatives. Okay, this is in this way we can propose an alternative to the societies where we live in that can be also prefigurative, of course. So what do we need as social movements to do these things? First of all, we need to open in times. Usually we struggle to find times to do our job, we have family commitments, and it's hard to just to gather together and to start to think what we should do, try to imagine, try to reflect on the past. Because we need to organize the demonstration, we need to find money for the lawyers, because there is another project block, and so on. So the first issue is opening times. The second is opening spaces. Not going to Mars will solve us, of course, but I didn't find any other icons in order to space. That is a geographical space. A space like this is a physical space, and at the same time is also a time that we are making together to share and to build some alternatives for the future. So these two concepts are very, very important. And of course, this is not just a moment building a cultural resistance, but it's a process. It's a process that can be seen as a spiral between there is the interconnection of three different phases: discover, engage, and transform. Discover is when social movements or social actors are discovering new information. For example, this interconnection between us now is a discovery phase. We are sharing information. But then there is the engage. Engage is when we start to discuss and to play with ideas. For example, when we have questions, when we have a workshop, And then we have a transform. Let's say you go back to your communities and you said, okay, so that person, Krini, said interesting stuff on education. How can we manage? How can we run? How can we stay together in a group? How can I apply that to my group? So that is a transformation phase. I have some information, I use my imagination, and I transform and I create something new. I create a culture resistance that works for my community. So this is my last slide that summarize a bit what I said today that you cannot see. Is there any chance to make it bigger?
We see it.
Can you, or you can use imagination?
Yes, something.
Okay, so it's just a way to summarize what I said. So on top, you have two concepts. Wait, I didn't touch anything. Okay, so on one side, on the left, we have movement relevant theory. So something that is useful and interesting for social change, first. On the other side, you have decolonized knowledge. So these two big concepts and traditions, they can inform building a cultural resistance for social change, okay? So at the bottom, we do all of this. Who is moving the... So we all doing this to change the world and make a revolution or revolutions as a plural. And we have around this building a cultural resistance for different concepts. We have memory and imagination on one side. We have solidarity. We have opening times and spaces, and then discover, engage, transform, spiral. So these are all concepts and practices that can contribute to create and to enable groups to work towards a cultural resistance. And in all of this, how social ecology can contribute? Well, social ecology I put down on the right side. I don't think that a revolution or a change should be labeled anarchist, social ecology, Marxist, or whatever, but can change names in order to be more readable to the communities where we live in. So I think that I'm a social ecologist. I love it. I think this is the best. However, it doesn't work that way. We don't have to be all social ecologists or other labels. But the idea is that social ecology or any other experiences can contribute in different ways. In this way, social ecology can contribute with ethics, with its ability to analyze contemporary crises. It can bring praxis like direct action or direct democracy. And at the same time, it can also give us the possibility to look how good utopia can look in the future. So give us the ethics, the analysis of the present, and the tools to reach the future utopia. And yeah.
Thanks a lot, Federico.
These are my contacts.
I'm sorry, who is in this computer? It's kind of creepy that it does stuff by itself.
Yeah.
Phil, were you moving?
No, that's
Because we are sharing the presentation, so you have also access.
yeah, but
But is there anybody else?
It's the air, I think that.
yes,
Oh, it also did a right click and almost deleted something? Okay.
uh,
The air is funny in this town.
Yeah. I don't know.
So next presenter, just Poulados, please. Who's based in Bernardos. Represents social movements, very Praxis. Please. Well, if you have any questions, we can collect them
Yes.
again for the presenter.
That back if possible.
Yeah, I will. On the screen.
If I put my computer here, is that okay? Or
Yes, it's no problem. I just want to put something on the screen that is not Emmet face.
tell me when?
Wow.
I cannot live without that.
For 1 second. Okay.
Very good thing about colonialism.
You can use the function issue.
No, okay.
So you can move it.
No, I don't want
Otherwise he will stay like.
You can move it if you like. I don't want to.
Ah, okay, so we can just turn it out?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So that's my screensaver.
It's still morning, so I can say good morning to everyone. Thank you for coming. I can see people have come from all over the world. That's very good. I don't have a lot of time for introductions. My name is George Poulados. We can discuss a lot of issues during lunchtime or in the following days. Unfortunately, we have only 15 minutes. I want to thank everyone who has worked very hard, starting back in 2014 when we began in Patras, and I think there was one before in Crete, I'm not sure. That was the first TRISE conference I attended. Some people are out here with us, unfortunately. Some cannot come. But let's get on and discuss about social movements, theory, and praxis. A friend saw my abstract and she said that it's very general. I said, if we want to talk about theory and praxis, let's go to the Soviet Union then and let's start talking about theory and praxis. Of course, it would take us many weeks to discuss about what happened there, what happened with theory, and what happened with praxis. For us, the words theory and praxis are very easy to use. The modern Greek. I was thinking of talking about two things, philosophy and history, and I will explain their importance. Philosophy helps us to understand what the heck we are doing, why are we doing what we are doing. The first person who helped us to understand the movements, although he did not contribute because he wasn't a part of any movement, was Aristotle. I won't go into all the theory of Aristotle, but I will just say about movement, what we call in Greek or in ancient Greek, kínηση. That's where everything starts from. We decide to do something. So that puts things into motion, as we can say. The second person, of course, is Hegel. Hegel is very important because we understand thesis, synthesis, and antithesis. That means that we fight against the government, we fight against the building of a dam or whatever. And of course, we have to either win, lose, or there's a third position, compromise, which of course is more complicated. And we move on to the third position, which is synthesis. Unfortunately, sometimes the social movements do not take these things into consideration, and they think they lose or they think they win, which is very complicated because one must always remember where they start from. Sorry, we go back to Aristotle. The third person is Marx. Regardless of what efforts many intellectuals on the right, on the left, have done to throw Marx into the garbage, it doesn't work like that. Marx is important because he has provided us what we call the material conditions. Social movements cannot exist, cannot move if they do not estimate, they do not understand where they are, what they are doing, what they are fighting for, or what they are fighting against, and where they are heading to. Imagine, for example, what happened in the Soviet Union when a young teacher would go to a school and there was no school in the village. There was a barn. I don't know if anyone has seen that film. It's an old Soviet film in the 50s, I think. And he had to remove the animals from the barn in order to make the school. It's a very interesting film. I don't remember the title. If I do find the title, I will tell you about I will give you the film. The fifth person, the fourth person is Mare Bookchin. Mare Bookchin always told us that all the ecological disasters, anything that happens in the world has a social cause. We cannot move away from that. Nothing happens by chance. We must always take that into consideration. How much time do you have?
9 minutes.
Thanks. The fifth person is Cornelius Castoriadis. Castoriadis has a very significant work starting from the criticism of the Soviet Union and why theory became something in practice that most people hated, even the revolutionaries hated the Soviet Union at some time or other, and examines in a very strict manner if theory has a meaning or if it's a problem with praxis. I would say it's even more complicated, and we haven't found the answer. We design something together, we go out into the streets or we go out into life to make it happen, and new things pop up. So we have to rethink our theories, we have to rethink how we are going to do it, and of course we have to examine critically what we are doing. I'm not going to talk anymore about philosophy because it would take a lot of time. The second thing, and the most important, is history. Georg Lukács, the Hungarian philosopher, although he went from left to right and right to left all his life, and he was lucky that he wasn't executed by Stalin, said that the working class and the social movements must always have in mind history. If you don't know your history, you cannot know where you're going to. This is very important. And not only is it important, it provides us with the efforts, with the battles, the struggles that the social movements have given down the history, down the ages. Some people might think that the social movements are just the social movements that emerged in the 50s or the 60s and so on. No, the social movements go back to ancient Greece. They go back to ancient China. C.L.R. James and Castoriadis always talk about in their books about ancient Greece, and C.L.R. James has written a book where it says cooks can govern. Where does he take his ideas from? He takes his ideas from ancient Greece, from Athenian democracy. Do we have any other movements in the past? Of course, we have Christianity. Most of us, personally, I'm not a Christian. Encountered many problems with the Roman Empire. They won, in a sense, they won. We can go back to history and examine what happened there. Are there any other movements? Reformation, they won too. We mustn't have like a single-sided view of what social movements are. Maybe we disagree with them. Definitely we disagree nowadays. But we must always bear in mind exactly what has happened in history. And since we cannot change it, but we can interpret it, it is very important to understand how this historical evidence can be important for us in the future. I used to belong in a group where we supported civil rights and the refugees. We always said that a theory is gray and praxis is colorful. I think that things are much more complicated. I think that theory also is colorful, and sometimes maybe praxis is gray. I think our intention should always be to have both of them colorful. Fine, okay. How do we understand? I'm going to the next step. How do we understand ourselves? How do social movements understand themselves? This is a very important thing. Something that in most cases is not discussed in the social movements. How do they see themselves in the public space and public discourse? Usually, our reply is to the opponents. The opponents say that we are this or we are that, or we are creating problems to society, we're going on strikes, we're marching in the streets, and so on. There are two things: what the opponents say, how they see us, and how we see ourselves. This is very important in theory, but it's also very important in praxis. Sorry, just give me a second. Do social movements have limits? Of course they have limits. We tend to forget that, but we must not forget that these limits can be extended if we have allies. This is the work of theory. We must work hard to understand how we can change things. Last but not least, because I'm more interested in discussion than just saying a few things about the social movements, is unity in diversity. A lot of people march on the streets and they think that their social movement, their little group that's fighting for their rights, whether it's feminist rights or workers' rights, can resolve the problem once and for all. That will never happen. It's clear. All these groups, all these movements, all these ideas must unite. Will there be differences, important differences that sometimes lead even to clashes? But there's only one way we can do that. I mean, cover the differences. We can discuss. And I think that it will happen in the future because I see new people, young people who have different ideas from the old participants in the social movements. And this is a good hope for us people. Thank you.
So next presenter, Girlwouthoutaruler.
Oh, wow, right now.
Yes, you, that is coming from Dublin, and we present the paper No Pain, No Gain, and overvalued utopia.
Oh, wow, that's the fastest turnover around ever. Thank you for the organizers to put this together. I'm actually so inspired by this space as a maker. So I'm happy that I'm not at the law school, although I'm sure that that's a really inspiring space as well. I think I'm gonna go abovo after immediate stress. No, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm gonna do immediate stress after abovo. So I'm going to just talk about Praxis and a specific example of Praxis and sharing my frustrations. I always full of them. And maybe we can, yeah, you probably share these frustrations. So, okay. So, I probably should not go slideshow. I'm just gonna go down. Okay, so I'm gonna go publication attempt number 1. In 2019, fresh at a brand new PhD program in Canada, I was delighted to take up an offer by my then thesis advisor to contribute to an edited collection, an academic edited collection. Being offered a first publication as a first-year graduate student seemed a fantastic opportunity. After a month of painstaking work to make it to the first draft deadline, I was told to hurry as they added me to the list of contributors late in the process. I was overjoyed to deliver on time. This was January 2020. A pandemic hit 2 months later, and 2 years delay in publication was largely accepted by compassion towards the editors. Obviously, we are in a pandemic. We all, were burned out and had a hard time. Explanations. However, the book is still not published. As you can see now, it's set a publication date as November 15, which hope is going to happen. I have not heard anything about it, so let's see. Explanations and excuses came late, infrequent and vague. Transparency seems too much to ask in a lot of, and this is something that I heard from other people too. Academic publication processes seem to have not so much transparency. So here we go. And this is publication attempt number 2. So this zine over here, you're welcome to give it around a little bit and feel it. So it grew up my frustration about the archaic rigid processes and rules of academic publication, which after my second fiasco with it, oh wait, where is my second fiasco? Oh yeah, here it is. So there's a second fiasco. So I came to realize after what I'm just gonna say, that it's universal. Initially, I cooked up the idea for the zine when I was asked to contribute a piece to another edited collection of academic writings on experimental ethnographies in popular music in 2023. First accepted, then at the last minute dropped by the publisher, the idea of contributing a zine, indeed similarly to a picture, or included similarly as a picture appendix. I was like, how difficult can that be, right? Seemed like a right approach to challenge. Disappointed, I declined the offer to include the already written piece as a traditional academic chapter, offended by the idea even. This was written as a zine. There's a big difference, right? Again, talking about accessibility and such. So I was delighted to get a chance to realize my dreams as one of the first outputs of a larger research project I am now involved with. Improvising across boundaries is a plural. Oh, this is the part where I have to say because it's funding, right? Improvising across boundaries is a 4-year research project that aims to establish a community of musicians to work together to document the experiences of women and gender minority improvisers active on the island of Ireland, including the North, right? Talking about borders. To produce useful resources, data, and reports for musicians, policymakers, and other industry professionals, to provide a space for collaboration and community, to highlight key issues for women and gender minority improvising musicians, and to provide ways forward towards equity and support. Okay, that's done. The creative process that went into the zine was a roller coaster. Actually, you don't see it, but this is actually a walking roller coaster. Because I was like, oh, it was actually really slow, but it was like a roller coaster. So I found this picture. Actually, all rights are open, so I could use this. Experienced in digital fanzine making and expecting to learn about copy machine techniques, I underestimated the time and effort this operation ended up taking. There were several delays even before I could start working, including a delay in finding a mentor who I work with. I got the chance to work with a mentor as a part of the project I'm working with, working for. I missed appointment by my mentor, badly chosen travel dates from my side, etc. As a result, no pain, no gain. The zine is a product of an extremely intense week of day and night work, several mishaps, painful compromises, major self-reflection, and harsh realizations, a close to panic situation, a cathartic comeback, and joy following a giant change in direction. Working on the zine made me realize that practice-based work is risky business and that traditional academic work is easy, projects. To be fair to myself and the rest of the graduate students in my shoes, it is not easy to be patient and take your time when you have a full-time PhD project, a larger project, 5 hours of tutoring, 2 hours of teaching, and 10 hours of bike co-op work on the side to be able to pay your horrendous rent in Dublin in 2024. No pain, no gain is everything. Let's see. No pain, no gain. This is the process. Sorry, I did not change the slides. It looks fun, but honestly, it was supposed to be, show how painful it was. No pain, no gain is everything I have dreamt it to be. Although I ended up being paired with a mentor who only had access to a brand new coffee machine, my idea of experimenting with coffee settings proved to be impossible. We kept fighting till basically the last week to mix photocopy with scanned pages, but the layout we chose combined with Japanese writing proved to be too much of an engineer's work for my humanities trained brain. The sketch together, torn apart, written piece, initially made as a raw material for the photocopy version, then became the piece itself. The original, literally in every sense. Every page reflects the fragmented, layered, crossed out, rewritten, reglued, eaten, digested, spit out thoughts, and I guess the exact way they went through my head and my whole body. My process manifested in a physical object. Holding it in my hand makes me think about how clean, digitally produced, edited, and then printed work hides all the pain that actually went into it. The time, the energy, the frustration, the sweat, the tears, the mistakes, the victories, and the relief. What's the time now? Oh, lovely. So I can share the self-review. I've written a review of my own theme. It will irritate you. Starting from the first moment you're laying your eyes on it. It has a weird beauty when you look at it. It appeals somehow, but it looks threatening as well. You see the sandpaper, the thin foil. You see the clumsy white Tipex rapid text corrector letters reminiscent of football hooligan graffiti. You know it's going to be uncomfortable, maybe even exasperating, but you can't resist. If you go grab it and hold it, oh, wait a second. Yeah, here we go. Sandpaper, thin foil. Lovely. If you go grab it and hold it in your hands long enough, you might experience that the initial expectation, the irritating sensation in your fingers starts changing. Now it feels stimulating. There's an excitement moving through through the tactile. Your curiosity has gone. You have entered into the conflict. When you open up the zine, the inside of the sandpaper might give you some kind of relief. Could it be that sandpaper backsides have their own beautiful world of variance, hiding behind what most people would only touch with work gloves? You might just crack the code. You are ready for the ride. I'm taking you through fragments of thoughts, clumsy self-explanation followed by stories, case studies, thoughts of mine and thoughts of others, all fragments upon fragments upon fragments. Still, somehow they have a flow. They talk to each other and they stream through topics interrupted by stories. I need you to think for yourself. I'm not selling anything here. Well, I'm actually selling it, right? But I want to make you reflect. You get a break before the story starts and after the story ends. Use it wisely. What does the color make you feel like? What does it mean? It's about this color over there. Why that color? Does it remind you of those intense noise breaks in Jonathan Glazer's films, perhaps? Or those instrumentally accompanied intros and outros classic Hollywood movies operate with? Man, I'm a big fan of Gone by the Wind. Okay. Or those, yeah. How would it feel to just go inside that page and submerge in number 4005391091038, thank you, 72, which is this color. Would it smell like glue? Are you ready to go on? Are you ready to read more? Lucky you. I still use the academic reference system. Don't miss Sarah Schulman's book. Oh, and if you want to read my manifesto piece that I wrote in 2019, publication attempt number 1. I can't quite promise it will be out next year, but the editors and the publishers have been working hard on it. So they say since 2022. Are you changed? want to talk to us. I won't make it easy, but I won't make it impossible either. I won't spoon feed you anything. You are made broken that way already. We all are. Let's fix ourselves. Let's all get into trouble. Okay, the project has straight out made me realize what I have signed up for when I decided to commit to an exclusively practice-based 4-year research project. It will be a wild ride, especially if I will have to work the number of hours I have to on the side. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. That's the frustration. The creative process is the embodiment of conflict for me. While most traditional academic writing in its feathery, comfortable, and predictable nature has proven to fail to make a difference in contemporary society, seemingly losing touch with reality and the people in it, their needs and lives and thoughts. I am not a traditional academic. My vast experiences and knowledge do not fit in the clean-cut, polished pages of mass-produced products. I have something different to contribute, and I feel that creative outputs are more potent to bear what I have to say, and many of us, I bet, and can speak more likely to a wider audience than academic publications. Perhaps we can together find a way to invite difference into this rigid world of sameness. I gave up applying for film school after I was rejected twice, back when I was in my late teens, early 20s. They said I'm very, very likely to get accepted on the 3rd try, as I have gotten all the way to the final round of entry tests the 2nd time around. But when finally I was supposed to apply for the 3rd time, I had decided that the world has enough artists and that I am bright enough to do anything I set my mind to, and there are possible better uses to my skills and abilities. Potentially medical school and stuff. Well, that's not how it went. I never meant to be an academic either. I just had things to say, ways to think, and the burning desire to make a difference. Then people who cared about me suggested that I try for a PhD. After one failed attempt at a more traditional research project in Canada, here I am, back with my teenage aspirations. I will be making a film. I have just made a zine, just as I did in my teenage years, on the punk scene in a small post-Soviet Hungary. 3 more zines to follow, a multimedia exhibition, a multimedia performance. It will be a wild ride indeed. Yeah, it has an Instagram page. And if I have a time for a snippet, really short, an ethnographic snippet. We were not sober anymore, sitting in a large handmade stone sauna with beers in our hands. It had been raining, but not snowing, which was unfortunate because we had to fumble our way through the slimy grass hillside all the way to the shallow lake in the dark when we needed to cool down. It is a miracle no one got hurt. The topic was confusion. Kenny Millions is an offbeat character and at first glance may appear like an odd choice for a faculty member for the kind of prestigious improvisation workshop Europe Akkordeontreff was. The group of improvisers in his conduct grew quickly irritated and frustrated with his seemingly nihilistic, distracted lack of leadership. On the final night, though, before we all got drunk and hit the sauna, all groups presented the fruits of their week-long collaboration. Kenny Millions' orchestra performed a baffling and ingenious take on the inherent potential of collective improvisation. They provoked and confronted Kenny and each other on stage in a sharp but respectful manner, and the whole filled up with a strange mix of discomfort and satisfaction. When the oyster realizes that its shell is hurt and an alien object is now floating around in its private sphere, the oyster slowly but surely focuses its attention on a painstakingly hard task of isolating the object to protect the soft tissue of its fragile body. The oyster struggles to mobilize a vast amount of resources from its own body mass to build up a shield around the intruder. In the end, a pearl materializes. Sad Kenny. Thank you. Oh, I have some things with me for donation around €5 so I can make more. So come ask, and I guess I might put some out there. I don't know what the rules are. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think it's my turn. Right? Can you hear me?
No? Yes?
Can we hear him? That's a good question.
Should I go or?
Wait a second, please.
He will present the paper with the title Prefigurative Politics, Past and Present.
Okay. Can you talk so we can check the audio?
Sure. Yes. Can you hear me? Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I can hear you.
Yes, but we don't have a.
Hey.
Can you add it here or something? It has to be added.
Sorry.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Theo said Theo can hear me.
Can you add the
Right.
new?
Hear him? I don't think so, yeah.
What can we do?
We don't have speaker. Is anyone
With
the speaker?
I already searched in all the building and there's no speaker.
Maybe just the computer says speaker. Would that be enough?
Hardly.
Hardly.
I will try to. I will try.
I'm sorry for creating this extra difficulty to you.
Don't worry.
I mean, just turn it out and then people can come close. I don't know.
I will do something radical. Like this.
So for this conference, as organizer, I want to say that we try to avoid online presentations. However, we will have some. We avoid them in order to, because we value the physicality and to meet each other. However, there are some extreme circumstances that we will use online presentations. Someone has family problems, someone has an incident, as COVID, or like in this case, it couldn't count for visa problem. This is an example of how researchers, activists from the south, the periphery, they have to apply for visa, and if we have them and we follow all the process, there is these shitty institutions that put a lot of barriers and that kind of internal borders that not here so for this reason is unfortunately online.
I think Federico summed it up very well. I don't know if you are able to hear me, but I think it was Federico, right? I mean, the first presenter.
Sorry?
Yes, Emre, can you give us 10 minutes?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Of course. I mean, if you think it's better, I can also, I mean, send you a recording or something if it's going to make your job easier. I don't mean to like create a whole
it won't solve
situation.
anything. No, don't worry. That's not a solution.
Okay, I'll wait here. Just let me know if I can present. I will do so. Otherwise, I really don't want to take too much of your time. From the discussion time and from the togetherness with the technical issues that you weren't really planning to deal with.
Will come in 10 minutes. So we take questions and then we go.
Okay, so in 10 minutes, is your turn, okay, Emmet?
Okay, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone has questions?
I should be.
So Federico had one for you, right?
Yes, so I have one comment, very brief, and one question. The key is as an editor of, of different books, I feel the pain, but also some reasons behind all the difficulties of the process. And on Saturday, I and Theo, that is the fellow co-editor of the book from the 2019 conference, we will explain and we will tell you about the process that we try to do in a very collaborative way, that crashed, and we had to do a more classical top-down co-editor process. So if you're interested around that, we can discuss also on Saturday in the book presentation. Yes. And I have a question. So today, I really enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you.
Today, I think that very well fit.
X makes one of us.
But I was thinking how you want to present in the future. So if it's, the zine is a standalone piece, or if, like, for example, the review that would become instead internal review, how would you pair that with the zine online or the performance?
Yeah, so for this thing specifically, I made an Instagram site.
can you hear
It's
me?
my first Instagram site ever.
Okay.
Oh, it's working.
Yes,
Should I just answer or should we go back to this?
it's from the projector. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. Sorry, you can continue.
You can finish and then.
Okay. So what I do is that the original copy, which hopefully gonna find back its way back, can be loaned. So if it's like, you know, within where I am, I can like give it to somebody and then that person has to give it to the next person. Or if it's not, then I send it. And I kind of like track that thing as well online. I have copies, and it might gonna become a part of a publication in the end. Like I'm trying to work on actually bringing zines together that are, because this is a peer reviewed piece, like literally it went through peer review before they dropped it, right? So I was thinking to bring together a publication, which would be essentially kind of like a picture book with zines inside that go through peer review, because obviously the peer review thing is the issue a lot of the times, right? And I'm gonna make 3 more zines in the next 3 years, and then I will, like the reflection piece, I want to publish it in like an academic journal or something like that. So I'm trying to mix and match. I mean, I wouldn't care about academic publications, but like I might, you know, need to put it on my CV if I want to, you know, whatever, continue in academia. So that's just the shit that you have to deal with.
Okay, thanks a lot. So we continue with Emre. As we said, he's based in Turkey and he's presenting the Prefigurative politics past and present. And you have 15 minutes, please.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Very well.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry for this inconvenience, and I'm really again sorry for not being able to be there among this great community and great organizing. I really appreciate all the work organizers, particularly Federico and Theo, did for inviting me there with this official letter so that I could actually present it to the Consulate General in Istanbul. But the visa process is turned into such a nightmare today that it wasn't even possible to get an appointment to present all the documents that I have compiled. After numerous trials, I ended up needing to ask the organizers if it would be possible for me to present online, because there is no way that I can get a visa on time. And they were kind enough to let me present that, but I do recognize the fact that it creates additional difficulties to everyone there. I hope you can bear with me. So I will not try to take too much time. The topic that I will talk about is prefigurative politics, and I'm mostly going to look back at its, say, theoretical origins, and the focus will be on Karl Bogg's earlier articles where he coined the term, and I will be looking at the different logics that is operative in these definitions of prefigurative politics, and will try to make a case that says one of those logics, which is ethical prefiguration, ends up, in my view, kind of overshadowing or kind of dominating other usages of this term, which is a more spatial prefiguration. And in that sense, like by making this distinction and kind of indicating that it's as important, the second part, the spatial prefiguration, is as important as the first one. By making this point, I will try to kind of make my contribution, which I don't know if you really need this kind of contribution there, as this kind of group of people and activists who are already plugged in and engaged within prefigurative politics and the space itself, the TRISE itself. is already performing that, in my view, which is, again, my loss, not being there and experiencing it with you and the discussions and the space itself. But shortly, I will do my best to kind of present my contribution. So let me read a section of my paper here, and if there will be any concerns with the time, please let me know. So the term prefiguration, generally defined, means to be an early indication or version of something in the future. It is used in a range of contexts from religion to literature, providing the term with specialized meanings in its field use. In English political vocabulary, prefiguration is a relatively recent term. During the 70s, the renowned writer on revolutionary strategy, Karl Boggs, coined the term prefigurative politics on a particular political strategy discussed within Marxist anarchist circles. Karl Boggs defines this strategy as, quote, the embodiment within the ongoing political practice of a movement of those forms of social relations, decision-making, culture, and human experience that are the ultimate goal, end quote. At the center of this definition lies a particular stance in the discussion regarding how to attain a social and political goal, more specifically, the goal of revolutionary transformation. The debate generally revolves around questions of whether or not to take state power or organize without overthrowing the existing state, to use violent or non-violent means, to adopt hierarchical or horizontal forms of organization, among several others. The prefigurative stance clearly articulates the matching of the desired goal, such as horizontally organized egalitarian society, with the means utilized to attain that goal, such as participatory councils, solidarity economies, abolishing the hierarchical political organizations, and so on and so forth. When Boggs coined the term, he drew from discussions in Marxist anarchist circles that contrasts prefigurative strategy with the instrumental one of gaining political power, and he argues that Marxist movements have been confronted with the dilemma of integrating these two strategies. Boggs writes, quote, one of the most troublesome dilemmas encountered by Marxist movements and regimes is how to effectively combine two distinct sets of tasks, the instrumental, which includes above all the struggle to conquer and maintain political power, and the prefigurative, which expresses the ultimate ends of the revolutionary process itself, popular self-emancipation, collective social and authority relations, and socialist democracy, end quote. For Boggs, Marxist movements have historically fallen short of providing this integration by prioritizing the instrumental aspect of gaining political power and overlooking the prefigurative engagement with the ends. Boggs' case for complementing the instrumental strategy with prefigurative politics can be grouped around two interrelated difficulties resulting from the lack of prefigurative component. They can be called the problem of reproducing the old structures and that of the inability to create radically new ones. Prefigurative politics provides specific amendments to each of these two problems by offering two practical logics for revolutionary politics. In my view, these insertions constitute two interlaced logics of prefigurative politics, what can be called prefigurative ethics and spatial prefiguration. Regarding the first difficulty, that's the problem of reproducing the old structures, Boggs writes, quote, a central dilemma of Marxism then has been how to create a revolutionary praxis that would avoid reproducing in some way the values and institutions of bourgeois society, end quote. Boggs directs this criticism particularly to Leninism. It was the problem of carrying over the social and political forms from the capitalist order into the newly built one, even after the revolution. Especially with regards to bureaucracy and hierarchical organization of the state, he deemed Soviet Russia as a continuation of the pre-revolutionary Tsarism. For Boggs, quote, bureaucratic centralism was thus neither an historical aberration nor a Stalinist imposition. It was the logical outgrowth of Jacobin strategy. The impetus towards modernization and the administered society could hardly be avoided once the original path was chosen, and he means the Leninist path in this case, a Jacobin strategy. To put this in other words, the dilemma of not being able to break away from the previous modes of organization results from the means used to achieve the political ends. The Leninist strategy is an end-oriented, consequentialist, within the philosophical terms, perspective that justifies the means to achieve a communist society for the desired end. To achieve this end, seizure of the state and the utilization of its apparatus are warranted. Whereas prefigurative politics asserts a different ethical stance opposing Leninist consequentialism. It argues that the means should be consistent with the ends which the movement is trying to achieve. If the objective is to realize a non-hierarchical classless society, then hierarchical structures such as the state cannot be appropriate means to achieve that end. Regardless of the intended goals, the utilized means would determine the end results, and hence, to prevent aberrations from movement objectives, and conforming means should be used. This means ends confirming political conduct is one among the two political logics of prefigurative politics, which can be called ethics, prefigurative ethics. The second problem, though, the inadequacy to create radically new forms, with which Box takes issue, leads us to another logic, spatial prefiguration. The second trouble with existing Marxist movements, according to Box, is the shortcoming, in his words, quote, to produce a conception of the transition to socialism that gives political form to the theoretically prescribed goals of human liberation, end quote. In another article, he unpacks this problem in the following words. The transition to socialism assumed a mystical quality. The consciousness, the social relations, and political habits necessary to build socialist order would seem to spring from nowhere, with no lengthy and organic process of transformation within civil society to nurture them, end quote. The problem is that the political forms of self-ruling do not develop in a capitalist society if these forms are not experimented with and developed already before the revolution. Then these deferred goals hardly attain concrete existence. In that sense, Box formulated the prefigurative strategy to complement the shortcomings of the Marxist-Leninism in giving a concrete vision of the shape of society and politics that could be radically different after a revolution. To that end, prefiguration is an indispensable component of the revolutionary struggle. It brings those future goals into the present and enables the development of the consciousness, social relations, habits that are aimed at in a socialist world before the revolution. This practice of creating an exemplary space in the present that experiments with the future desired forms can be called spatial prefiguration, opening up a space of prefigurative projection. The difference between these two logics of prefiguration may sound subtle, hence the reason to distinguish them may seem rather oblique at first, but the usage of prefigurative politics without distinguishing these terms creates certain problems, such as judging all prefigurative politics and prefigurative practices as lifestyle anarchists or individualists. And not I would suggest that that might be a popular criticism here, but it's done quite often. Here, to make the distinction more clear, let me refer to an example that performed one of these logics in the absence of, and even in contradiction with another. It's an example of spatial prefiguration that contradicts the logic of prefigurative ethics, that is, the usage of representative democratic mechanisms in developing direct democratic local councils. It's a bit dated because it belongs to it. I have 5 minutes. Okay, it belongs to 2019 and was operative until the last local elections in Turkey, which is Fatih Mehmet Maçoğlu from the Turkish Communist Party's representative of Dersim province in Turkey, and they have. But they were elected in March 2019 local elections and became the first communist municipal leader of the whole of an entire province in Turkey. That was the first time that took place. He had been ruling Ovacık, and a smaller town of Dersim, since the last local elections before in 2014. And during his leadership, he spearheaded several prefigurative projects such as agricultural cooperatives and local participatory assemblies, and so on and so forth. And he ruled until the last election, 2024. I'm sure many other examples can be given from Greece as well and from all the other international examples of this usage of elections in gaining political power on the local level and implementing direct democratic mechanisms. They are good examples of spatial prefiguration that instantiate the future desired political forms of local councils in the present. Nevertheless, the way they practice such spatial prefiguration does not conform with the logic of prefigurative ethics. The means they utilize, that is the running for local elections with political parties and collecting all these votes and so on and so forth, do not fit with the desired end of horizontal self-ruling. Prefigurative ethics would require these agents to utilize the council model in their organization, excluding the party and representative mechanisms in their attempts to create those spaces of local participatory governance. It's possible to detect this spatial sense along with the ethical one in Bock's account as well. But he does not explicitly formulate them as two distinct political logics. As Bock's characterize it, there are three basic concerns of prefigurative politics. One, fear of reproducing hierarchical authority under a new ideological rationale. Two, criticism of political parties and trade unions because their centralized forms reproduce the old power relations in a way that undermines revolutionary struggles. And third, commitment to democratization through local collective structures that anticipate the future liberated society. The first two concerns clearly fit into the logic of prefigurative ethics, which abstain from reproducing the existing structures by utilizing appropriate means. On the third element, though, we can detect the logic of spatial prefiguration that creates local structures in the present. By offering this distinction between ethical and spatial, just 1 minute, I do not mean to argue that the latter logic is devoid of any normativity. In effect, both logics internal to prefigurative politics have normative baggage that is anti-authoritarian, decentralized, democratic, and egalitarian. Such normative content comes from the anarchist heritage from which this politics was practiced and formulated, so much so that the prominent tendency in defining prefigurative politics summons this heritage and normative aspects of anarchism. To name one, Uri Gordon defines prefigurative politics as, quote, the realization and expression of anarchist values in the movement's own activities and structures, end quote. The prominence of the normative content in prefigurative politics may explain why this politics is usually conceived in terms of its prefigurative ethics at the expense of sidelining the spatial prefiguration. There is more in my paper, but I think this is a good point for me to end concerning the time constraints, and I don't want to take too much time. Thank you for listening.
Do we have 10 minutes? We can take it for the lunch break. Okay. So now we have 10 minutes for the questions for the anyone has questions for any of the presenters?
We should engage.
I think everyone's hungry.
Comments and maybe during the lunch break. But maybe especially for Emre that will be in the lunch break. Oh. Okay. Questions? Yes, please.
What includes in terms of decolonizing knowledge?
The question is for whom, please?
Decolonizing the knowledge.
Yes, for whom is the question, please?
Federico.
For Federico, okay.
Okay, so I didn't unpack that, of course, we didn't have enough time. The easiest and the shortest way is to answer is that we should be aware about the possibility to have colonial heritage, let's say colonial impacts on our practices, and we should. Yeah,
I can say something too.
yeah.
Like maybe, think about like you're not just thinking the Greeks or Marx, but you're thinking like, how about indigenous, knowledges around the world? Like there's a lot that is not canonized and we don't know about it and we're not exposed to it. And like kind of finding ways to, make them accessible. And, that it's like a big structural issue, obviously.
About the language, for example, when I wrote about struggles in Brazil, that I did research in Rio de Janeiro, I try to use, for example, literature coming from that area. Of course, that I value the literature. It's not just a random person speaking on that topic, but to value literature that coming from there, that is original from there. And also, I try to use terms in the original language, because sometimes the translation, you lose a lot of meaning. So some key terms should be used in the original language and then explained through the text. These are some examples. Yes. But of course, it's much bigger.
Anyone else? One more, and then let's read. Okay.
My question is, I didn't catch the name of the online.
Emre.
My question is for Emre.
Can you go closer, maybe? Yeah. Thank you.
Can you see me? Okay.
Yes, I can see.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, the way, if I understood you accurately, and I might have not, but if I understood you accurately, I think you're positioning the two dimensions of prefiguration as a tension with each other. First of all, I just want to know if I got this right, if you intended that to be the message. That's just a yes, no.
Not exactly. I mean, I think they are two distinct components that one of them tends to be overlooked. I'm not thinking that they are necessarily clashing to each other, but there are certain cases where they may contradict each other, and in such cases, dismissing the entire practice is what I'm trying to avoid.
Got it.
If it
So
makes
my
sense.
question to you is, in the cases where they clash with each other, do you have any guidelines for movements, how they can walk their way through deciding where the line is, beyond which, if we don't align means with ends, we may as well not do anything? Is there such a line? Or is there a way of thinking about it that can help people make the decisions? Because these are really difficult decisions to make.
Precisely. I mean, unfortunately, I wish I had the guideline. That's a great question. It's $1 million question, I think. The thing about the spatial prefiguration is that it does promise to create a space that's exemplary in the future. But in the creation of such space, what I'm trying to kind of argue is that in the creation of some such space, yes, sometimes there are certain means that does not fit with the end. And that's because that's part of being surrounded by the capitalist economy and the system that ends up being completely dismissed. Whereas what I'm trying to call is that, which is also within this literature, that there is this kind of strategic mindset also embedded that has to accompany with the means ends equilibrium, as well as a strategic mindset to make sure that those spaces emerge and those spaces can sustain and continue.
Okay, are you open to me bringing a specific example?
Oh, please, yes. Yes, of course. Yeah.
So is it okay? Is there still time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So, okay.
Yes.
We can make Yes, is made.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
it's
couldn't.
3 versions.
Um, hello. Hello. Hi. Oh, okay. No worries. Okay, so I'm just logging out. Thanks a lot for letting me in, and if you end up, oh, okay, now I can hear. Yeah. Oh, yes, I do. It's actually very loud. Yeah. Oh, okay. No, no, I'm sorry. The person was asking questions. Were really asking important questions. Sorry that I'm not able to. I thank you. Please, yeah, please feel free to distribute my email. Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And have a good lunch. Thanks again for your patience and organization. Bye.
This one, yeah, there's this one, email me and like, then you were.
Teo. Teo. Fuck. I think this is the problem. Look, there's a button and it turns green. So maybe